All right, people are starting to roll in. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Depending on which time zone you're in. We see all of our friends joining. It is good to see everybody. We'll probably get started in the next 2 or 3 minutes. We have a good big group here today. Excited to have everybody on for our webinar dedicated to solo marketers and their 2021 planning. Doing awesome. All right, lots of good friends are here. This is great. We will go ahead and get started in about 1 minute, folks. What I would love is we're going to do for the early birds who are here on time, or I guess the on-time birds. If anybody has a question related to their 2021 marketing program, or maybe wants to articulate their largest challenge as they think about 2021, you can go into the Zoom panel under Q&A and you can ask your question. And I would love it if somebody tested the Q&A section with a question. Anything's on your mind, we will be happy to answer any type of question related to your 2021 marketing plan or your program or your strategy. It'd be great if somebody could pop in a question. All right, we got a really good group here. Lots of friends are joining. That's awesome. Okay, once again, the warm-up question is any question you have about your marketing. And we already have some questions coming in. Perfect. Thank you, Lisa, for going first. We already got the question about whether this recording would be made available. And the answer to that is yes. It will be made available either this afternoon or tomorrow morning. And anybody who registered will receive the recording. We've got a great few questions coming in. Lots of questions about social media, a question about a website, questions about blogs, and we will get to all of those. For anybody who's not joined us on one of our webinars, this is not a one-way webinar. So we do look for lots of questions. I will interrupt people. I will ask them questions. I will ask them to go deeper. So without further delay, got it. We've got some great questions in here. I can't wait to get to them. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. My name is Raj Kapoor. I'm the founder and managing director of Van Marketing. We are super excited to have everybody here to talk about how solo marketers can jumpstart their 2021 marketing plan. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to introduce the expert coaches you can see on camera. I'm going to ask an icebreaker question. For those of you that were on time, you already know the question, so you're welcome to go ahead and pop that question into the Q&A box. I'm going to be monitoring the chat box throughout and the Q&A box, so you're welcome to use it. Let's be pretty active. We'll go through our 10 tips, and here's a hint. We gave a bonus 11th tip because we couldn't just be restricted to 10. So we're going to give our tips on how solo marketers can jumpstart their 2021 marketing plan. And then we're going to spend a few minutes at the end talking about And Marketing You. That's one of our latest programs, and it's launching in January. It's an education program to empower solopreneurs and one-person marketing departments to really learn how to do all of these things themselves. So we're excited to talk about that. So any questions are welcome, and I will go ahead and introduce everybody. Again, my name is Raj Kapoor. It's my pleasure to introduce Beth McDonough. Beth, you want to say a quick hello?
Hi, nice to see you.
Beth acts as the community manager for And Marketing You. So for those of you that were engaged in the program in the fall or plan on joining in January, she's going to be a face and a name that you see quite often. She does a great job of managing the entire program. Number 2 is Tracy Cola. Tracy is one of our marketing directors, and she is responsible for marketing planning and execution. Tracy, you want to say a quick hello?
I'm super excited to be here. Hi, everybody.
Thanks so much, Tracy. And Tracy is involved in several of our modules for And Marketing You, and she does a lot of the behind-the-scenes work. And last but not least is Dexter Burgess. Dexter does a lot of our technical work. He does SEO. He does a lot of advertising, a lot of analysis, and he is involved in several of those modules as well. Dex, you want to say a quick hello?
Hello. Hope all's well.
Awesome. And on our website, the rest of our coaches are there. So we only had an hour, but we have a group of about 10 coaches that are involved in various parts of And Marketing You. The 4 of us will take the responsibility of today's webinar, but you will see other people from time to time. So let's go ahead and get started. So the icebreaker question is, what is your number one marketing challenge as you think about planning for 2021? Okay. So I've got a bunch of questions in here already. So I'm going to actually start answering some of these as other people think of more questions. You can also ask a very specific question related to any part of marketing that you'd like. So the first question I'm going to put out to the group is, what is the best social media scheduling platform? So I think, Beth, you're probably in the best position to answer this question. So I'll maybe ask you to answer the best social media scheduling platform in your eyes.
Yes. So if you are using Facebook and or Instagram, always schedule those through Facebook Creator Studio. So this past year, they launched their own scheduling platform, and Facebook really prefers you to use their stuff. So anything that you schedule through something they own is going to get more visibility. So your stuff's going to get hidden a little bit if you're doing a third-party scheduler for those two platforms. For Twitter and LinkedIn, it's really personal preference. We like to use Hootsuite and Buffer pretty often. They both have free versions and paid versions. Usually you can get what you need with the free one, unless you want to go higher with the amount you're posting or looking deeper into analytics. You can't go wrong with most of them, but those are the two we prefer. And then always use Creator Studio if you're doing Facebook or Instagram.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much, Beth. All right. And another question from my friend Harriet. Does anybody really know what SEO is and how to use it? And I can't think of anybody on earth better to answer this question than Dex. Dex, do you know what SEO is and how to use it?
I do wish I knew. Let's start with it. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. The most times that you'll see or hear about it is dealing with Google ranks. So your website will show up in the Google ranks for certain keywords. And SEO is the process of making your pages rank better on Google for those keywords.
That's perfect. Perfect. There tends to be, just to go a little further, there tends to be 2 or 3 really big ways that we think Google chooses to rank things higher on organic search. The first one is entirely technical. So what Dex is talking about is making sure that on the back end of your website, you have the right words, the right headers, the right tags, and you're targeting the right terms. The second one is really good content. So content that has all of those keywords that answers the questions that people are typing into the Google. And then the third one is backlinks. And so what backlinks basically mean are that other websites are linking to your website. And so that basically teaches Google that, oh my gosh, this is a really good piece of content because other people are linking to it. There's some evidence out there that over time, Google is making that third one, backlinks, a little less important. So really the two that we like to focus on are technical SEO and then really, really, really good content. Okay, I've got a lot more questions, but I really want to get to the tips. So keep on asking your questions. We're going to try to get to all of them. We're going to leave plenty of time at the end, but I do want to jump in. So that was a great start there. So again, I just want to remind everybody that this whole presentation is brought to you by And Marketing U. So And Marketing U is an education program for one-person marketing departments. Really the beneficiaries of a program like this are solopreneurs and small business owners, generally people who don't have an entire marketing department, or those who don't have the budget or desire to hire an external marketing company or marketing agency. So very similar to us. If you can't afford or don't want to hire them, this is a way for you to actually learn how to do it yourself. Other people are what we call one-person marketing departments. So these are people who have the sole responsibility of marketing in their entire company. They're asked to wear a lot of hats, and they tend to be really overwhelmed. And then finally is what we call multi-level marketers. So these are people who probably sell a service and some sort of multi-level marketing, such as makeup or essential oils or Tupperware, things like that. They have the burden of doing all of the marketing for their own business. And so this type of course might be really suitable for them. So the way the program works is it launches with a 3-month pilot. We're starting our next cohort in January. And here are the 3 or 4 biggest features. Number 1, we have education materials, very similar to what we talk about here today, on the latest marketing tips and tools and trends. We try to do that in a jargon-free, plain English way. We have access to approachable experts like the wonderful people you have here today. There's a community of like-minded professionals on a similar journey, so you can ask questions of each other, network with each other, and then our group coaching sessions are there's group element to it as well. And then finally, you develop a customized marketing scorecard for your own business and sort of a 1-year roadmap. So there's a couple of the testimonials you see there on the right. And then there's more information at that website you see at the bottom. And I think that should be in the chat as well. All right, so let's jump in. So it's my pleasure to bring tip number one. So tip number one is about marketing strategy. The challenge we see is that most small to medium-sized business marketers don't take the time to really understand their prospect and target audience, don't really take the time to understand their true needs and how their particular solution uniquely solves that challenge, okay? So the tip is to take the time to do that. And here's how we really think about it is take the time to understand what their biggest challenge is. We like to call them pain points, okay? And the theme of marketing strategy is that it's not about you. You have to make it about understanding that person. So the way we think about it is, number one, take the time to document your prospects' biggest pain points and make sure that they're right. The challenge that you think they have as a challenge may not be correct. So take the time to really understand it. These may be areas that have nothing to do with your product and service, but that's okay. You really need to understand how your product or service fits within their solution. And that's why we think about it as a pain point. It's really something that should be hurting. Number two is take the time to understand your next best alternative in their eyes. These aren't necessarily competitors. They certainly could be competitors, but a very common next best alternative is do nothing or find something online or do a different kind of a product and service. But really in that decision maker's eyes, it could be the same. And then finally, the best part of this tip is what do you do about it is finding your uniqueness. It's the thing or the one thing or the two things that nobody else can claim to solve that problem in your customer or prospect's mind. And I would say that's the type of thinking that I just don't see very many small business owners or one-person marketing departments taking the time to lay a really clear foundation on marketing strategy. Okay. All right, I'll hand it over to Beth for tip number two.
Okay, tip number two is all about mastering your brand's messaging. And we got a good segue into that with Raj's first tip. The challenge is most solo marketers make the mistake of positioning themselves as the hero of the story instead of their customer. So the tip that pairs with that is to take a fresh look at your own brand positioning and make sure you're making your customer the hero of their own story with you as their guide. So your customer is always going to be Luke Skywalker. You're never going to be Luke. You're always going to be Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know you have a better product or service than your competitor does, but does your customer know that? Customers are going to tune you out if your brand is self-promoting, inconsistent, and unclear. So even if you have the best product or service, whoever has the clearest messaging and story is going to win out every time, even if they're not superior. So think about Apple. I know that can be a hot topic for phone and computer users, Apple versus Android and all that, but a lot of their current ads focus a lot on privacy. So they don't really focus on whether they have better privacy features than their competitors. They focus on highlighting the risk of having your own privacy breached and the reward of feeling safe when protected by an Apple phone. So they focus on their hero, which is the phone user, rather than Apple and their company's own awards or history or their employees or actually even the tech that's attached to the phone. They don't compete with their hero, they highlight them instead. That's B2C. So if you're also, say you're a B2B cybersecurity company, think about it the same way. Your software doesn't save the day on its own. It helps the organization's IT professional or whoever in that company is going to be applying that software. They're going to be the hero that's saving the day. And because we are fully based in data and we don't ever just make assumptions, I'll highlight a couple of stats here that are at the bottom of this slide. 40% of consumers are going to unfollow a brand if their activity is dominated by self-promotion. And consistent presentation of a brand increases revenue by 23% on average. So pick your voice, pick your brand positioning, and stick with it across platforms. And by having a clear message on your website, you're going to reduce bounce rate by 20 to 30%, meaning people are going to stay on your website longer if they can see clear messaging and a strong story that positions them as the hero. So I'll take a second and let that sink in as we shift to the next slide. You all are stuck with me for about 4 slides now, I think, so I'm going to be delivering the next few tips. All right. Tip 3 is about researching and creating content that converts. So the challenge is that most solo marketers make the mistake of thinking content marketing does not generate real results. A lot of times we think of it as fluff, right? It doesn't actually do anything tangible or grow your business or bring in money. The tip here is to develop a consistent content strategy that's rooted in concrete information like research, data, and your actual business goals. So the real problem is a lot of people are using the whole throw spaghetti at the wall method and don't actually have a recipe to make good spaghetti or the information and the data to know whether or not it's actually going to stick. So in order to do this, you have to perform lots of research, set measurable metrics, and go after quality keywords to build content that will, number one, help people find you when they're searching for an answer to their problem. And number two, keep them coming back when they need help. Now that number one is has a lot to do with that mysterious SEO, and Dex will talk about that a little bit later. But content marketing, when done really well, moves prospective customers down your sales funnel by building trust, by building awareness, and establishing yourself as their trusted guide. So they're Yoda to their Luke Skywalker, and helping them do that themselves. And then finally presenting them with an easy yes offer as they move down the funnel. So you want to align your content with your business goals. You want to do all of your research to make sure that you're targeting the right keywords, that's SEO. And you want to stay the course and actually write really strong, well-written content that uses that same brand voice that we talked about in the last tip.
That's perfect, Beth. Thank you so much. We actually got a question that came in directly related to this slide, so I'll go ahead and ask it now. You say perform market, keyword, and competitive research. What are your tips, again, on a limited budget, because we're talking about solo marketers? What is the best or easiest way to perform market, keyword, or competitive research?
Yeah, so there are several free keyword research tools. You can use Google Keyword Planner. You can use Ubersuggest. Ubersuggest just came out with a bunch of really cool features around competitive research, actually. So if you put in your own website or your biggest competitor's website into the search bar in Ubersuggest, you can actually click on an option now called Keyword Gaps, and that will show you all of the keywords that they're ranking for that you're not, which is a really great place to start looking at for keywords. And we're going to talk about social media a little bit, but social media, everybody hangs out on social media. So get on Facebook and see what your competitors are doing on Facebook. Look and see what Facebook groups people are hanging out in, where people are joining, what pages they're following. Those are a couple of free ways that you can start to figure out, what your customer looks like and what they're looking for, what their problem is and how you can help them solve it.
Okay, you're on a roll, Beth. I want to give you one more question if you're okay with it.
Yes.
So this is a small question. Thank you so much, Claire, for posing it. Is it better to, so this is a B2B business, and is it better to post my blog on my website or on LinkedIn?
Well, you can definitely do both. So Google's not going to penalize you if your blog is on your website and also on LinkedIn. The really cool thing LinkedIn has done recently is made their articles able to be indexed by Google. So Google can start to pick up on actual natively posted LinkedIn articles. But I will say that the end goal is always to get them on your website, right? Because that's where your strong messaging is going to be. That's where all your calls to action are going to be. It's where the information about your product or your service all lives. Like that is your digital business card. And so when in doubt, I would go for the blog because that's going to get the person to your actual website.
I would tend to agree. There's absolutely nothing wrong with both. So I'd say both, and definitely on your website. And if your audience is on LinkedIn or on a particular social media site, you definitely want to use that as well. But I would say always, always, always on your blog, because that lives forever and that's your own property. It's not owned by Microsoft, which is what LinkedIn is. That's great. Mm-hmm. All right. As Beth catches her breath on those questions and those tips, I'll again ask people for any other questions that they might have. And we'll keep going through those. But Beth, back to you.
Mm-hmm. So tip 4 is about distributing and promoting content that converts. The challenge is that most solo marketers focus way too much on social media and not enough on building their email list. You can hear a lot these days that email is dead and everybody's using social and not email. but that's simply not true. So our tip is to use a funnel strategy to draw website visitors onto your email list by offering them generous and valuable content in exchange. So regardless of how many followers you have on social media, you're still at the mercy of an algorithm and at the whims of Mark Zuckerberg, plus whoever owns Twitter and LinkedIn. Your email list is the only distribution channel you truly own. So you know that your content will always be delivered right to your potential customer. And so you want to leverage the marketing funnel here by offering a mid-funnel piece of content as a download that's relevant to the problem they're looking to solve, meaning they have to provide their email address in order to receive that piece of content. So say the article on your blog covers a topic that sits at the top of the funnel. That usually means that you're telling a reader why something is so important or what something means, the definition of something. That's where they build awareness and you start to build their trust and they start to look at you as a thought leader. And then the mid-funnel piece of content, that's going to be the piece of content that they have to provide their email address to receive. That's the download. That's going to be a mid-funnel piece that generates interest and consideration. So that's where you're going to add extra value by telling them how to solve their problem, how to DIY something. For example, we have a B2C client where we created an ebook for them that tells them how to actually do the thing that we just told them in the blog post is important. One of our own content downloads is a website go live checklist. So it's the next logical step for anyone who's reading an article about what's important for your website, best practices for enhancing your website experience. You'll hear more about those tips later in the presentation. But when they read that article and they think, oh, well, what all do I need? How do I set my website up? How do I take my website live? Then they can type in their email address and we'll give that checklist to them straight into their inbox. And then once they sign up for your email list, you can take a lot of this work off of your shoulders by setting up an automation sequence. So you can set up what those emails will look like where they get delivered that piece of content by writing one email and setting it through your email service provider to deliver to them automatically. So you don't have to type up an email every single time that sends them that piece of content. And then this is going to get a little bit technical, so I won't go too deep, but you can segment your audience too. If you have multiple content downloads, you can do a lot of segmenting and set things up so that you only have to touch it once and then you're golden. But once they're signed up for your email address, it's really important for you to earn a place in their inbox by continuing to provide them regular value and really strong content. So once they offer you a space in their inbox, don't just try to sell to them every time you email them. Give them really, really valuable stuff so that they continue to stay on your email list. And then when you do sell to them, they're ready to buy. I'll take a pause
awesome,
there.
Beth. And I don't, you were going great. And like 3 questions about email marketing popped in. One of the comments basically said, embarrassed, have ignored my email list a lot. So absolutely, we advocate for email marketing because as Beth so clearly articulated is, you've earned a place in their inbox. So keep taking that place. It doesn't rely on another vehicle to do it. So one of the questions is, what are some strategies to draw contributors and eyeballs? So I would say visitors or potential customers. What are some strategies to draw potential customers to open source software projects? So this person looks like they're in a pretty technical area. And they say it's the underlying tech of my business. So what are some strategies to draw some interest to open source software projects? Any ideas on that, Beth, or anybody?
I mean, so it's a super technical subject, so I don't know how to answer that right off the bat, other than to say that's where some of that SEO work and some keywords are going to come in, because the groundwork is going to come with, number one, getting to know your potential customer, right? And a lot that comes from that strategy work in the beginning. Research who you're trying to sell to, what keeps them up at night, what are they typing into that search bar into Google, what are they looking for answers, what are they looking up, YouTube videos to figure out how to do themselves, and then create your content that's going to help them solve that problem.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, Beth. What I would say for more technical types of things, it really doesn't matter what the technology is. What you've got to think about is, what is the answer that people are looking for, or what is the question that they're asking, or what is the problem that they have? So if you're trying to generate content to draw people in, is really get an understanding of that and talk about that. Don't necessarily talk about your solution or your product or yourself. really start understanding how it fits into a problem. So it might be, I'll just make one up here for Jeffrey, who asked the question, is the top 5 challenges for open source software projects, right? So somebody with a background that would start a business like that would probably know the answer to that. So writing a really high value article about what those top 5 challenges might be, or the top 7 easiest solutions, or something like that, that might draw somebody in who has a problem around open source software. Or you could go a little bit further and you could say, well, who are the people that need open source software? They might have some other challenge, and you might write about that. I think that's exactly right. And the more technical it gets, it feels like the more simple your content needs to be to draw people in to be able to speak their language. So I think that's great.
All right. So tip 5 is about building an engaged audience through organic social media. And organic social media is not paid. This is the free social media. So this is just what you post on your social media platforms. So the challenge is most solo marketers become frozen by the idea of a consistent presence on social media because they think they have to create brand new content for each platform. They also think they have to be everywhere at once. So the tip here is to repurpose your content on multiple distribution channels and don't hesitate to be repetitive. A lot of times we think we are saying the same thing too many times on too many different platforms, but because of the algorithm, chances are most people are only going to see your stuff one time, but it also usually takes about 7 times for someone to see something before they actually take action on it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel and overwork yourself. Like I said, the chances are the same people aren't going to see your content over and over again, even if you repeat it in multiple places. That's how information sticks, and that's how consistency is created. And so you want to repeat these 4 steps when you're creating content, because you can use it to create multiple types of content and you can put it in multiple places. So when you write an article, turn it into a video, turn the quotes or the main points into graphics, break down your content into a series of social media posts. So if you have 10 tips for something, make each tip a different social media post. I'll pull back the curtain and tell you what we're doing with this webinar right now, just to use us as an example. We outline this content and we'll use it to write a high-level top funnel blog post for our website. We'll take this video and edit into several small clips with 1 tip each and distribute it through our social channels over multiple days. And then we'll probably also turn some of these tips into graphics. Maybe we'll flesh out a couple into content downloads that I mentioned earlier. So it's super cliche that saying, work smarter, not harder, but it's really true. You really don't have to do something brand new every single time you're posting on social.
That's fabulous.
We got a bunch of, yeah.
Yeah, we have tons of questions. What I'm trying to do in real time is take the comments and the questions and apply them to the right tip. And, I have to admit, I'm struggling a little bit.
No, I knew we got a lot of questions in the last slide, so I figured they were coming in again this time.
Yeah,
too.
they're coming in. So this one's actually going to ask you, Beth, to go back. And so I'm going to go back to that tip and maybe specifically answer Don's question here. So the question was here, I think. It was, how do you write a good blog? What are the building blocks? So Beth, I think you kind of answered that, but maybe specifically talk about how to write a good blog.
Yeah, so when you think about writing blog posts, you want to take yourself all the way back to when you were in high school and you had to write like persuasive essays and things like that. So you want a really strong opener, an introductory paragraph where you explain what the piece is about. If you're writing for SEO, you also want to make sure that your keyword is in there and that you explain the problem, right? So in school, we've called it the thesis of your piece, but you want to explain the topic that you're covering. And then you want 3 to 5 strong points that you're making. If you're writing a list, that's really easy because it's just the numbers on your list. But if you're writing like just like a regular article, try to keep it to 3 to 5 points, and then you make those points and then you tie it all together with a conclusion paragraph. The main difference between writing on a website versus writing like an academic paper or something like that is that our attention span online is literally that of a goldfish now. It's about 8 seconds. And what helps with that is breaking up text. So if you remember when you're in school, they used to tell you that a paragraph needed to be, I think, at least 3 to 5 sentences. That's not the case with online writing, because that's a lot for the eyes to take in. It feels really daunting to have that big chunk of copy like that. So don't hesitate to break it up and use lots of headers so that it looks like separate information and it feels easier for a person to stare at the screen long enough to read that content. Hope that helps.
I think that's great. I think it's perfect. I think we're going to push on. I think, Beth, you had one more slide here. Go ahead.
Yes. So those tips that I just went through, it's a lot to remember, and it's a lot of tasks to juggle, and it's a lot of content to crank out and plan and repurpose. So you'll need a content calendar to keep track of your content marketing strategy, the results, and your social media plan, so you can pull together all of these activities and execute them actually ahead of time, and not, Wednesday morning, wake up and be like, I haven't posted on Facebook in 3 days. I don't have a blog post, and you're scrambling and trying to do all that. So when you do enroll in And Marketing You, we will guide you through this process step by step. We help you research keywords. We give you a content calendar template. We hold you accountable for planning out your content. And so through the program, you'll walk away with a completed 3 to 6 month content calendar with social media that's ready to take and execute yourself.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Beth. And before we hand it over to Dexter, we do have one more question in here that's related to the material we already covered. Somebody asked, I think the question, I don't think it's, there it is. What is an appropriate marketing budget? This is a question I get all the time. And so, Matt, thank you so much for the question. It is a very hard question to answer specifically. So it tends to vary, large companies from small, and B2B from B2C. A general guideline is that B2B companies should be spending around 5 to 7, maybe even 10% of their revenue on marketing. So the real question is, does that include people? Does that include out of pocket? Does that include any sort of expenses that you might have? And the answer is, it depends on your business. So it's very hard to come up with an exact number. I would say B2B in that 5 to 7% of your revenue range is good. If you're trying to build a brand from scratch and you have a smaller business with less awareness, you might need to be a little bit ahead of that. And then if you have very large B2B companies, it might actually be smaller than that as a percentage, but obviously they're much larger dollars. On the B2C side of the business, B2C types of businesses, those numbers tend to be much, much higher. So sometimes in the 20 to 25% of revenue, because if you're building a brand that consumers have to get, that consumers have to learn about enough to, in order to make a purchase, those budgets tend to be a lot higher. So 20 to 25% is very typical. And again, for much larger companies, that could vary. I think companies of our size and scale, smaller businesses, that 20% is generally a good guide. And again, does that include people? Does that include out of pocket? Those are all the things that you have to think about whether they're included or not. So it's a great question. And I think, Dexter, you're up next.
Awesome. Tip number 6. Tip number 6 is all about optimizing SEO to rank higher on Google. So what we see, the challenge is that many solo marketers know about SEO, though they have no idea on where to begin optimizing. While improving SEO can be complex and very technical, there is a simple way to start improving your rankings without the need of advanced coding knowledge. So what I really mean about the coding side is there's a lot of site speed stuff. There's a lot of CSS and JavaScript that may seem, a bit over everybody's head here, but all of that coding is important and you need a developer for it. However, there is this one thing called SEO titles and SEO descriptions that you can update in your website without the need of code. So the tip for this is to research the keyword that you want to show up on for Google and update your SEO titles and descriptions to include the targeted keyword you researched. You can see on the right-hand side, I have a small example. For our company, we wanted to rank for marketing automation. And this was using the tool Ubersuggest that Beth had mentioned earlier. You can also do keyword research with Google Keyword Planner that she mentioned, as well as SEMrush. There are a bunch of free tools that basically help you determine the search volume that keyword gets and whether it's difficult or not to rank for that keyword. From there, once you determine that this is the keyword that you want to rank for, go into your website. If you have WordPress, you most likely have a Yoast SEO plugin. If you have another web platform, they usually have their own area to do this yourself. And update your SEO titles and descriptions. So you can see in our example here, one of our blog posts was about the basics of marketing automation. And so in the title, I chose the basics of marketing automation, our keywords in there. And in our description, we also talk about what is marketing automation. And that'll help us to rank higher in Google for that keyword.
So excellent job, Dex. And as you would imagine, we have some questions about SEO. So these are two specific questions that actually, Beth, they might be for you. They might be for you, Dex, so you guys can decide. The first question is from Lisa. Are keywords and SEO important in Instagram? Are keywords and SEO important in Instagram? I'll let either of you take that. And I'm not sure if we know the answer, so you're welcome to answer it as best you can.
So with Instagram, the top two fields you fill out in your profile. So your name, and then I believe right under that is like you can put in a description of who you are, what you do. People can search for those things as keywords and say you're an accountability coach. And so in the description under your name and your profile, you have, Beth McDonough, accountability coach. And if someone searches for an accountability coach, you can come up for that. So that's one way, and you can use keywords. Unless they've changed something like incredibly recently, I don't think that applies with captions for photos. Hashtags are used a lot in Instagram. So you can actually follow a hashtag. And if you follow a hashtag, that means the photos someone posts for that hashtag are going to come up in your feed. Or you can click on a hashtag and see everybody else's posts, and you can engage that way. So that's the primary way keywords are used in Instagram, or your profile and the hashtags you use.
And to piggyback off of that, Beth, you had mentioned as well that LinkedIn is starting to archive their posts into Google. So if you do use LinkedIn, definitely use your keywords there as well.
Yep. The corollary to that question number 2 is from Quinton. So thank you, Quinton, for the question. How has social media adapted an SEO approach with hashtags? I think we answered that part. And the second part is, and does that help connect to the website? So again, I'll have either Dex or Beth answer Quinton's question.
Yeah, so generally speaking, it does help with the website. One thing that's starting to kick a lot more in the algorithms is Google's able to tell what your business is through Google My Business, through Facebook, through Twitter, through LinkedIn. So if you have those linked to your site, Google is able to connect those and start to pair you with the performance that's happening on those social medias respectively. So if you are getting a lot of keyword volume for a LinkedIn post, there's a good opportunity that your website is going to rank a little bit better just by having that LinkedIn post rank well.
What I might add to that is the link between what is going on social media and SEO is not one that's terribly well known. And it's not one other than LinkedIn, which Dexter definitely mentioned. I would say for Facebook, for Facebook and Instagram, I'd say that link is a little bit less. So linking it physically back to your website is the bigger challenge, because Facebook in particular, with Instagram being one of its properties, wants to keep you in their ecosystem as long as possible. So they don't want you bouncing around to a bunch of places, even though that's your brand or your company's objective. All right, let's keep going.
Awesome. So tip 7. Tip 7 is about enhancing your mobile website experience. The challenge that we see is a majority of small business websites look great on laptop or home computers. However, they display a bit of formatting issues on mobile devices. Most often, this is caused by the website itself doing auto-generating your website for mobile. So your website builder does a great job of trying to format down for mobile or trying to format to tablet. But as we all know, there are 1,000 different devices in the world and 1,000 different screens. So having your website look clean on all those devices is very difficult. And that brings us to our tip. Our tip is to pull up your website on your own mobile device and review the formatting. From there, update your website to ensure that any bad formatting is fixed to be easily viewable on mobile devices. Where we mostly see this is images or text, where sometimes the text may be formatted on a couple lines and may have a hyphen where it breaks up some words, unfortunately, or where the images are too big or too small. You can kind of see a rough example on the right-hand side where the menu on the left is very unclear. It's hard to see things, and you'd actually have to zoom in on your device just to click a link. Whereas on the right, we have nice, easy buttons to click and guide people to where they need to go.
All right, perfect, Dexter. I think we'll keep going for the moment. We have plenty of questions.
Cool. So my last tip, tip number 8, is about improving your paid social ad campaigns. So the challenge here is that solopreneurs are often able to get social media ads up and running. However, in most cases, people set up a very broad audience segmentation that results in higher spend across the ad account and less conversions. What I mean by the broad audience segmentation is that when you go into Facebook and you say that you want to target your specific audience, maybe it's a specific location, maybe it's a person that has specific interests, we often see that that targeting is pretty broad. And what that leads to is a lot of people that really don't know about you, it might just kind of tune out because they don't know who you are or what your message is. So the tip for this is to optimize your campaign by uploading your email list into Facebook and LinkedIn to begin retargeting these specific contacts through social media advertising. This helps because these people already know you. And so when they go to Facebook to do their normal browsing, they may see one of your ads and be like, oh, I remember this company, and they may have helped me with this. And so let me go back to their website and see what they're talking about. On the right there, you can see a quick screenshot of basically how you do that. You go in and create a custom audience, and then you can upload your file from there. Very good tip.
Thank you so much, Dexter. I would say this tip, and I should have said this at the beginning, you guys are welcome to screenshot or grab these. I would say for a small business with a small budget, the act of retargeting as your first paid social foray is a great idea. So Facebook and LinkedIn do a great job of it. And so again, it's taking the people who've already given you permission to get their emails and use that as a retargeting audience in Facebook or LinkedIn. They don't have to follow you or be friends with you or whatever that is on Facebook in order to get your advertising. So they're already familiar with your brand. Many of us who have smaller companies and smaller brands suffer from low awareness. And this is a great way to start that. We see time and time again, people pouring money with limited budgets into paid social, and it's not successful because you're trying to go get a much broader audience of people. And with low awareness, it's just not a great way to start. So we really recommend this as a great way to start. Okay, I've got a kind of a miscellaneous question I'll jump in with here, and I'll open it up to the floor. So this appears to be a legal business, and Jim is asking, what's the best way for me to connect with non-workers' compensation lawyers, so non-workers' comp lawyers? So Jim, that's a pretty specific question, but let me broaden it out for applicability to others. So in professional services, if you're looking to sort of break out of your own network, I would say the biggest thing that you can do is probably through LinkedIn, because that's where professional audiences are really hanging out. As many people know really well that LinkedIn usage is skyrocketing through the pandemic right now. So there's more time on site, there's more content on there, there's more things happening. And so if you're trying to go build your referral network, what you could probably think about doing is creating content that might be really interesting to them. So think about what their challenges are, think about what they're looking for in partners, and really start building content that makes you the partner of choice, the place that, the person who knows everything that they're looking for. The second part I would do is really find an outreach campaign in order to meet them without being salesy. So LinkedIn's a very specific tool, and the level of spam has accelerated with people selling. So find a way to get into their LinkedIn inbox, comment on their comments without being salesy. And really the answer to that is adding value to your relationship. So one way that Beth already talked about is through really, really good content, because that's certainly one way, but engaging with them on LinkedIn, understanding what they do in groups, being there to answer questions, those are all great ways to build your referral networks. So Jim, I hope that one helps, and we're happy to take a follow-up on that. And as we transition to tips 9, 10, and then the bonus one, I'll just shout out another time. We are wide open for questions. Even after we finish these, we'll continue taking questions as long as you guys have them. But I'll go ahead and start with tip number 9. So tip number 9 is gaining exposure through public relations. So most solo marketers don't have a concrete plan behind any single PR push. They assume all announcements are newsworthy and that all PR is good PR. Okay, so the tip is to take time to be strategic about whether your news is compelling enough with people outside your company. So we really think about this comment around newsworthiness. Okay, so just because it's important to your business doesn't mean it's important to the PR world. So the reason that PR is so effective is because it's free, but it still takes a ton of effort. So really think about newsworthiness, think about timeliness, think about your location, think about human interest. And really, it has to be the right place and the right time. I'll give you a perfect example that just happened to me today. So a small business owner came to me today and said, hey, we have a PR release for an announcement we're trying to make. Can your team help me release it today or tomorrow? And I said, well, have you guys put a plan together? Have you set target audiences? Do you know which industry publications would be interested in this? Basically, the response was, no, we just want to get it out into the world. And what I had to coach that person is that just because it's important to you and it's timely to you doesn't mean that there's an audience receiving it. It's the end of the year. Most publications are wrapping up for the year this week and next week. So you really have to think about the timeliness of it. So now we're working with them to figure out a real plan on how to get that in front of the right eyeballs. Okay. That's tip number 9. Tip number 10 is brought to us by one of our partners. So Rhino Reviews is our partner as it pertains to brand presence and online reputation management. So this one is brought to us by them. So managing your brand's presence online. So the challenge is that most solo marketers ignore their online listings, and this is a huge opportunity. So reviews really matter. Google My Business, that's GMB, Google My Business can make up about 20% of your local SEO. So many small businesses tend to do a lot of business in their local geography. So having your Google My Business profile updated is really important. So the first part of it is make sure your online listings, especially Google My Business, most of the time Facebook, most of the time Yelp, but there's maybe 30 or 50 other publications that could be relevant depending on what industry you're in. Make sure that they're claimed and make sure that they're updated. So what being claimed means is that you go into your listing, you claim it, you receive a code, and then you can actively manage what's on your Google My Business listing so that when people go there, there are a bunch of reviews, there is a bunch of information, it's accurate, it's updated, so that if they want to reach out to you after they Google you, they can do that in the easiest possible way. The second thing is actively solicit reviews at least once or twice a year, and then on an ongoing basis from your happy customers. So sending them a very simple email or a very simple request and say, I would be honored if you left us a very quick review on Google. This is the kind of thing that helps you really skyrocket on local SEO. There's a few advantages to it. One of them is SEO. Another advantage is that if anybody else is looking for social proof that you're a good service provider or you do a good job, looking at those reviews really matters. Answering those reviews really matters. And part of Google's algorithm, it's hypothesized, is how recent and how often those reviews are engaged. So it's definitely a piece of advice we would advocate for. Okay. Got another question coming in here as we transitioned. Dex, it may be best for you here. Dex or Beth here, again, you guys can decide. Should I be changing my website to focus on customers rather than tell them about my company? So the answer here, Don, is absolutely yes. You should change your website to focus on your customer and their problems. And I'll let Beth or Dex jump in and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'll let Dex add on the actual logistics of the customer journey and the path of your website. But as far as content goes, you only want to talk about yourself specifically on the homepage as it pertains to how you are serving your hero, right? And so the two primary ways where you want to talk about yourself is as a guide to earn their trust. So that might mean logos of certifications you have, logos of well-known clients, if they're okay with you sharing them, testimonials, things that aren't just bragging, but they're showcasing, like, hey, we know what we're doing, so that the person reading your website knows that they can trust you. And then they want to know who you are and exactly what you do in a way that tells them, I can help you solve your problem. The space where you can spend a little bit of time talking about your company more, like the history, your employees, the story of how you got started, things like that, that's going to be on your About Us page. And even when you're doing that on the About Us page, you still want to talk about it in a way that pertains to the solution that your customer is looking for, right? So they might care if you have 20 years of experience because they're going to trust you more, but they might not care about like what your kids' names are and all that stuff unless it pertains to something about the business that would help them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Beth there. The main spot that you want to focus on yourself is the About page or your team page as well, where you have the images of yourself and your team. But that's the main area. The rest should be about what Beth said, that your hero and your customer.
All right, perfect. Thank you. I think, Tracy, you're you're going to talk about bonus tip number 11.
Hi, everybody. So bonus tip number 11, the importance of marketing execution. The challenge is that most solo marketers don't have a marketing team and they're spread super thin, trying to wear all of the hats and probably trying to accomplish more than is ever possible in a day. The key to managing resource needs is to assign one person to manage all marketing and sales activity. So you have one person and they know everything that's going on and they track it using one single source of truth, which is a calendar, and everything you're doing will be on that calendar, from monthly reporting to promotions to social media. Everything should go on that calendar. And finally, it's really great to plan 3 to 6 months out so you're measured and you're not being reactive. You're being proactive. So this concludes the tips, and we have the chat open for questions. So please continue to throw them up there and the Q&A. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Beth. While we wait for the questions to come in, she's going to talk a little bit more about And Marketing You.
Sounds great. Tracy, actually, I'll intercept that. There's a question almost directly related to your bonus tip. So
Okay.
Follow up. So this is a one-person business.
Mm-hmm.
They say that their biggest challenge is consistently creating and executing their calendar.
Got it.
I think they're taking the advice of having a calendar,
Mm-hmm.
but with only one person, their challenge is how do you actually consistently create and execute?
So I would recommend, and I see who this is. I would recommend setting some time aside on a Sunday. Maybe we're coming up to the holidays. People are going to be taking time off. Block out some time, sit on your couch and map out the next 3 to 6 months. And I would tell you to do it, to start off sort of simply, right? So if it's not realistic for you to post weekly, don't put it on your calendar. Realistically think about what you can do, map it out. And I would say start slowly. So maybe you post once a month, you send an email once a month, start slowly. And then as you get used to it, you can ramp up. And I would also tell you to actually block time on your calendar to make sure if you're going to send a newsletter out once a month, schedule 3 hours on your calendar to actually do it. So you can't book, so no one can book the time. That would be my advice. Raj, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's sound advice. I think batching the task and separating it from the actual execution is really important. So I love the idea of sitting on your couch and doing a bunch of it at one time. So it's like maybe you only need 1 day per month to actually plan your calendar out, but you can actually send them more often than that. You don't have to send them as you're building. So if you're in writing mode, maybe you block a half a day, do all of your writing for that month or whatever, and then you actually send it out on a weekly basis or something. So I think it's great advice, Tracy. Perfect.
Something else that can help batch work is doing it by like topic or theme too. So if you know you want to talk, say we know we want to talk about SEO, right? We can either dedicate a whole month to SEO and we can do, all of our social media, all of our content, everything is about SEO, or we spend that time just thinking of SEO topics and then spread them out. Maybe it's one a month. But if you do it topic at a time, that can be really helpful too, because you put yourself in that mindset of what they need in relation to that topic and just get it all out there at once.
Absolutely.
That's great.
I think Beth, you're up next. We got a couple more questions, but Beth, I'll let you go and then we'll get to that. We'll open up the floor for questions.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the community manager for And Marketing You. So I wanted to give everybody an idea, if you become part of this program, what you can expect on a regular basis. So we have weekly live webinars that are led by your coaches, some of which are us, and there are several others, as Raj mentioned at the beginning. You'll likely see my face on those every single week so that you have someone you already know who you're going to be talking to. And they will be a little bit different than the way we're doing this webinar today. So those classes in the program are more conversational and open forum. So we give you the option to have your camera on and to unmute yourself and ask questions. So it's as if you're in like a virtual classroom, and you'll get as much airtime as we do to engage and also to talk to each other too. And then for each module we offer actionable tips, tools, templates. Earlier I mentioned a content calendar. There's a template for that. You'll get to see a lot of the like the forms that we have developed ourselves and that we use. Like I mentioned the Go Live checklist that we use as a content download. That's already in there. All of those that we have are accessible for you to take and keep and use to execute these strategies. We also offer one-on-one coaching and accountability sessions. So depending on if you want to spend an hour with somebody just crushing out a content calendar and looking for some topics, you can book an hour with me and we would spend time one-on-one actually just applying that work to your actual business. I mentioned the live webinars, and then the courses that we run go for 3 months. The initial 3 months is 1 week dedicated to each topic. And then after that, you can maintain ongoing access to the community, which is a private forum just for students to network with each other and to ask questions about the materials. And then we're developing new materials constantly. And so you would continue to get access to those as they're created and uploaded, and all of the live classes and the webinars that we do. We focus a lot on the core topics that we discussed here today. So building a clear marketing strategy, working on your messaging that focuses on your uniqueness and your customer as the hero, both creating and distributing content so that people actually see it, improving your website and your SEO, optimizing social media, both organic and paid, and then PR and online reputation.
Perfect. Thank you, Beth.
Mm-hmm.
I'll spend just another minute talking about in marketing you. And again, open forum for any questions. There's still a ton of people on the chat. So I'm seeing a few questions come in and we'll certainly answer those. But just as Beth was talking, I thought I'd just take a minute to talk about what those 11 weekly modules are. So sharpening your marketing strategy, mastering your brand messaging, creating content that converts, distributing that content, building an organic social following, enhancing your website with technical SEO, enhancing your website with design and storytelling, and then converting customers through paid digital, talking a lot more about public relations, online reputation management, managing your brand's presence online, and then executing an effective marketing program. So the way the program works is that there's 3 tiers of offerings. So you can decide which one is best for you, but the easiest and the quickest to attend is self-paced. So self-paced is on-demand webinars, member communications, downloadable materials, all the same tips, tools, and tricks you get, but it's self-paced. You do it at your own pace. The second tier, this is our most popular. It's the community forum. It's self-paced plus you get the weekly live webinars that Beth talked about. You get group coaching and you get community access. And then the third tier is VIP. So we had a bunch of people that said they really liked the community aspect, but they wanted one-on-one coaching instead of just the group coaching. So you get an annual marketing roadmap done for you. You get an audit, which is your website, SEO, social media, and a 10-point scorecard on your business. You get a private accountability coach who conducts bi-monthly sessions. You get a monthly analytics report, and you get an assignment feedback. So annual access you can see there. And until Christmas Eve, so that's next Thursday, the 24th, we are doing a savings of $250 off of self-paced. And then we're doing a $500 savings off of the community membership if you buy the annual package before 12/24. So the classes don't start till January, but we're sort of doing these early bird specials for people. So if you guys are interested, the link is there. You're welcome to ask any questions about the program. And then what we're going to do now is we're just going to open up the floor for any other questions that folks may have. So I'm going to go ahead and take one question here from Erica. She asked a while ago. So Erica, I apologize we didn't get to it. But the question, I think this is probably Beth. I'll try to answer a little bit of as well. So this is really about timing. So if you post your content to both your email newsletter and your LinkedIn, should you do it on the same day or should you do it the next day? So my response to that, Erica, is you should test that. So my assumption is, and I think I've seen your blog, is that you're putting this on your blog, you're putting it in email, and you're distributing it on LinkedIn, which is exactly what you should be doing. I think the underlying fear in your question is that you're going to inundate people, maybe miss some people or overwhelm them. And I don't think that's much of a fear. What you might think about doing is creating content on your blog more often than you send emails. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one blog, one email, one post. You could do potentially multiple blogs in one email blast, or you could do a couple of blogs that you talk about in a LinkedIn post or something like that. So I think you've got to really vary it up a little bit and then measure where you see differences. Beth or Tracy or Dex, anything you would add to that?
I would just add, a lot of this depends on how often your people are used to hearing from you, whether that's specifically through email, because we all know there are some emails that we sign up for and then we started getting just inundated every single day with emails and we quickly unsubscribe. And so, once a month might work for you, or biweekly, or some even do weekly. And if they hear from you more frequently, and maybe they've already seen the LinkedIn article, you could make your email subscribers feel like they're getting something a little bit extra by adding some color commentary to that article. So you share the article in the email and then maybe tell them a little bit of a story. Tell them why you started writing about that topic. Tell them something that happened with a client or a customer. Give them a little bit more of a personal touch that they wouldn't see if they just read the article on your website or on LinkedIn.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much, Beth. I think this is the last question we got. Again, we're happy to take further questions, but Tom is asking a question specifically about affiliate marketing. So they currently have clients with over 1,200 affiliates, but they're only really getting sales from about 25 of them. How can we get more sales through other affiliates? So I actually would go back, and again, anybody else is welcome to answer this question. I would go back to your marketing strategy, and I would go to your affiliates, the 1,175 affiliates who aren't really using the program, and ask them, what are their challenges and what you can do better? So the reason I say that's a strategy question is, do you really understand what their challenges are, how you're providing a solution, and why they're not using it? That goes back to the 101 of market research, and really understand what their challenges are. So take the time to do that, and then you might figure out a solution to that. Any other solutions?
No, I agree. I mean, and being helpful will take you a long way. And I don't know how stringent you want to be, but you can also make certain things part of the original affiliate agreement that you have them sign when you bring them on. So you can require, maybe some of the affiliates aren't bringing anything in because they're not sharing, or that, they're not participating as heavily as some of the others are. So you can make, how many times per month you're promoted through their social media channels, or one email a month, or whatever that might be. You can make requirements part of the actual affiliate agreement that they sign up for when they apply.
Perfect. Thank you, Beth. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I don't think I see any other questions. I think we answered all of them. So we'll stay on for a few other seconds. I just want to thank my fellow panelists. So Dexter, thank you so much. Beth, thank you so much. Tracy, thank you so much for all your hard work and answering all these questions. And I think we're right at time, so we're going to wrap. I just want to take another moment and thank everybody so much for their time. Hopefully you found our webinar in getting some practical tips for 2021 for your solar marketer business. And we wish you a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.